All right, thank you for joining me here on Valley News Now. I am going to be talking Chad Oban with the Keep It Local Coalition. We are talking about property or the Measure 4 on the North Dakota state ballot, the property tax measure. Numbers are coming in. So far, it is looking like people are saying no to this.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, it's early numbers, but overwhelmingly the numbers that have come in, we're in the 70% of North Dakotans are saying no to Measure 4. I think voters have heard the message that there is no plan to replace the $3.15 billion loss in revenue if this measure were to pass. And we've been saying all along, the more folks get to know the details of this plan, the more likely they are to vote no. And I think we're seeing the results of that this evening.
Leading up to tonight, how are you feeling? Were you at all worried how people were going to vote, or what were you hearing around the neighborhood, others in the coalition working to get the vote to be no?
Yeah, we've been pretty confident for a while here, but knowing again, the more that people got to know the details of the measure and that there was no plan to replace it, the more likely were people were to vote no. So having a coalition of 113 different organizations coming together to encourage people to vote no has been tremendously helpful. It gives a lot of different avenues to educate people, and again, we're seeing the results tonight of that campaign.
There is another organization, End Unfair Property Tax, with Rick Becker. Have you at all talked to him this evening to check in as those numbers start to rolling? It's a pretty big difference with 70% looking to be voting no. Numbers aren't final yet, of course.
Yeah, no conversations with Dr. Becker or the supporters of the measure. I don't expect we will. But again, I think, we're happy with the results right now. I'm also, encourage state legislators, if they're listening, they need to do something about property taxes when they get back to Bismarck in January, because I don't think we want to go through another campaign like this. People are frustrated and rightfully so often, but this just was not the right solution for property tax reform.
Do you have an idea or any inklings of what you think might be the right step forward as far as tackling property taxes?
We've been saying from the beginning with the Keep It Local coalition that we've came together for one reason, and that was defeat this measure. I think as soon as we get all the results in tonight, there's going to be lots of conversations. I know there's lots of members of that 113 groups that are having conversations with legislators. There's lots of different things being floated around in terms of good reform for property taxes. But I think, again, we want to have a thoughtful discussion about what works best for local political subs, make sure that we can continue to fund our essential services while maintaining that local control, but also seeing if there's a way we can take a significant amount of the burden off of property taxpayers and really focusing that property tax reform on residents. The other problem we found with Measure 4 is it wasn't just primary residents. The benefit also went to out-of-state corporations. I think legislators are going to be tuned into the idea of making sure that the benefactors of property tax reform are people who actually live here.
And then after tonight, what is next? Is there anything you need to do on your end as far as this measure? I mean, if this measure passes in your favor, property taxes are still intact. So is there anything Keep It Local will need to do?
I don't know that there's anything that Keep It Local will plan on doing. Again, we're formed with the goal of defeating this measure. But I think, there's lots of different coalition partners who came together, not because we think property taxes are perfect, but that this wasn't the right solution. So again, I think it's time for legislators and political subs and members of Keep It Local to come together and figure out, is there reform that can be done that again maintains that local control and makes sure local political subs can control their own destiny and fund those essential services, including schools and law enforcement.
You mentioned the upcoming legislative session, a message to lawmakers. Is there anything else you want to say as those numbers come in? I know you said you're pretty excited, you're happy with the results we're starting to see about 2 hours after polls have closed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're excited. Our polling had indicated that we are going to likely have a good night, but you never know until you start to see the numbers coming in. I'm just really pleased. Again, this coalition of over 113 groups from the right to the left to rural to urban to everybody in between coming together and standing up for our communities. It's really been a great experience in 2024 with how divided we are politically to see all these groups together and trusting each other and fighting for a common cause. And that's been really fun. in a good experience. And now I think it's time that the real work begins to figure out a real solution to property taxes in the state.
Well, we will be continuing to follow this issue as it develops heading into the legislative session. As right now, at last check, about 70% voting no on Measure 4. We will continue to bring you team coverage both on air, online here at Valley News Live. But until then, thank you, Chad, for joining us. I know it's been a very busy night.
Thank you, Sydney.
All right, thank you, and thank you for watching.